This is an India Today exclusive. I'm being joined by Germany's ambassador to India, Ambassador Philipp Ackermann. Thank you so much for joining us. Lots of negotiations, lots of deliberations. You yourself had gone back to the headquarters and have returned. What can you say about India's 1 year of G20 presidency?
So let me start by saying what a presidency. I think India elevated the G20 presidencies on a next level. You have a year full of meetings across the country. I just was telling somebody that I remember being in eastern Assam, and you see all the G20 signs everywhere. I think when the Prime Minister says he brought G20 to the people, he's right, because G20 was present all over the big country of yours. And I'm very impressed with that, because all of a sudden the G20 got a political message out to everybody. Notwithstanding what happens tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, I would say great success for India. Kudos to the Indian organizers, to protocol, to a fantastic Sherpa and a team, and to the Indian government, of course. So I think great presidency. What's happening tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, we don't know yet. As you know, negotiations are underway. I mean, they are sitting around the table now and trying to figure out how to get this declaration going. It is a challenge. I think maybe the most difficult G20 presidencies of all times, in a way. But I would say, which other country, if not India, would be in a possible in a situation to get a result, and therefore I'm pretty confident. We all know there are some items that are controversial.
We'll talk about the items, the controversial ones.
We all know that the circumstances are difficult, but I have a lot of trust in the Indian capacity and capability to get to a good statement. And that's, I can tell you, with the, from the bottom of my heart, I would say, Germany's wish. We want this presidency to be successful. We want this summit to be successful, and we'll do our utmost to get it to a good success.
Right. Ambassador, you just spoke about the Sherpa meeting. Now, what's interesting over here is that the Sherpa meeting was to conclude yesterday, and it is still continuing. That really spells what and how difficult it has been to negotiate terms and conditions for a consensus document.
Yeah, I think you are right. It is a very difficult time, it's a difficult substance, and negotiations are not easy. Everybody knows it. But let me tell you in all honesty, summits of this endeavor, of this importance, negotiations are going on until the very last moment. We know that from Europe. They always say, let's do the math before, let's do the document, let's close it 2 days before, and it's never going to happen. So I think it's not exceptional that negotiators are sitting still around the table, that they extended, the negotiations. It's not exceptional. It's rather the rule than the exception. But I admit that, coming to a conclusion in this context is particularly difficult.
Okay, let's just talk about the concerns and the areas, beginning with what really concerns Germany the most, which is the Russia-Ukraine war. One of the important aspects of not getting a consensus, not bringing about a consensus, is the fact that the language on the war is something that Russia is objecting to. China is objecting to it, saying that geopolitical issues should not be a part of the joint communique. And some other countries are reluctant on other fronts. But what about the war? We spoke with Amitabh Kant, the Sherpa, and he said that, we are confident of getting a joint communique on development. We don't care much for something that we didn't create, which is the Russia-Ukraine war.
So I would say that I'm also confident that the delegation will be negotiated. So let me say that I share Amitabh's views on that. But I think what we have to see is, and that's Germany's point of view, you can't separate politics from economics. Both are interwoven, and we have seen the terrible impact the war of aggression in Ukraine has caused in the world. And therefore, I think it would be not credible enough to leave out these political aspects. So we have to find a language that reflects this situation. Now, there is the Bali Declaration. The Bali Declaration was very satisfactory. India was very helpful in getting this Bali Declaration. And that's, I think, a standard that is set up. Now, will you repeat this language? Certainly not. You have to find another language. But I'm very confident that the Indian side will find a language that reflects the problems, the shocks that were caused by this invasion in an innocent, weaker country. And therefore, I think this is certainly a very important part of this declaration. I want to say that we are not a single issue delegation here. You know, everybody talks about Ukraine and Russia. I think it's a very important matter and a very important aspect of these negotiations. But there are others too, and I want to name one: climate change.
That's right. We will be talking about climate change.
Climate change is very high on our agenda, as it is on India's agenda. And I was surprised to see how difficult it was during the last ministerial meetings and the last meetings of senior officials to get to a good conclusion or a good language on climate change. So we are striving and we are trying to put all our efforts in a good language on climate change. I think it's the world's #1 problem right now, and we have to find a way in this very representative multilateral forum to commit ourselves to tackle with it. And there, I think India is a very, very important partner, and we feel that we are on the same line.
Ambassador Ackerman, I need to speak with you on climate change, but before that, just a quick clarification or question on the war. Now, we do know that there is a difference, and they're still deliberating on it. But is the stand of the United States of America, Europe, very clear on the fact that this has to be a part of the document? Is it non-negotiable?
I think it should be reflected in the most appropriate way. I think we will be very flexible when it comes to the wording, but it must be reflected in the document in some way. We are committed to help the Indians, to find a solution to these problems. We are very flexible when it comes to, sentences and wordings, but I think what is very important to us is that it is somehow reflected. You can't leave it out.
And if it is not, if there is no consensus on the language, then it would be the chair's summary. Are you okay with that? It certainly will not be consensus.
It would be, frankly, I would hope that we get a solution where everybody, or at least most of the countries, and we have seen that in Bali, can agree to. We have this, solution with footnotes, and that's unfortunate, but it's possible. So I think a negotiated declaration is better than a chairman's statement. But if we get a chairman's statement, and I will make that point very clear here, because we have seen it in the last ministerial meetings, everybody was on board except for 2 countries. So if we don't get a declaration in the summit, I think we'll have a very, very similar pattern which we saw before. And that would be most unfortunate. So. But let me tell you here, I'm really confident. I'm believing in the Indian skills here. So I think we'll get something.
Okay, get something there. But what about climate change then? Climate change is a different story. It's not about 2 countries opposing the rest of the world or the rest of G20. It's about developed versus developing. And here, might I say that India, China, Russia, Saudi Arabia seem to be on the same page, and the developed world on the other.
Yeah, I think I would say that theoretically everybody is on the same page, because everybody accepts that this is the biggest problem for humanity right now. The problem is, or the question is, how to tackle it, how to solve it. And there we have seen during the last month, and I'm a little surprised, frankly, to see that there was more differences of views than community or common views. So basically, we'll see what comes out of the statement here. I think that this is still less controversial than the other issue, but I have to say that it would be very unfortunate if we didn't get up with strong language on climate change, because I think that would disappoint many, many people, because this is such a important aspect of our living together. And India, again, without India, this problem cannot be tackled. You know, you are one of the cornerstones of the world's efforts, I would say. And India and Germany are working closely together and with great success and with lots of ideas. But it should also be reflected in this multilateral fora. We know the reason why people are a little reluctant. Some countries are reluctant to join, all well known, but I think it's high time to sit around the table, and you know, we will have COP later in this year in Abu Dhabi to get a common view on things. So let's see what comes out of the document.
And are you looking forward to all the color, the festive mood of Bharat Mandapam, and the vegetarian food, of course? Vegetarian
food, you know, we are more used to vegetarian food. And as I said before, you know, the India has been such a fabulous host, a spectacular host, that it brought not only, you know, the wisdom of Indian diplomats and skills of Indian negotiators to the table, but the whole country was on the table all of a sudden, and that made, I think, the world understand what a wonderful country India is.
Well, I'll take that. The whole country is going to be on the table. Thank you so much for joining us here on India Today.